we're still just starting to figure out what this new AI ecosystem really looks at like, and everybody's throwing money into it and hoping that they figure out. But let's face it, in 5 to 10 years from now, what does AI look at like for the IT organization? No, but nobody knows that answer. Nobody knows what these cost center look like. Nobody knows what these IT departments are really gonna look like. If you tell me you know exactly what that's gonna look like 10 years from now, I'm gonna tell you you're lying.
I won't name her, but I just saw a post by someone I know, um, talking about how AI is going to be completely different in 5 years, and it's like I agree with that statement, but to your point, we don't. She was trying to explain that, hey, this is what it's going to look like. It's like we don't know. Nobody knows. It is so dramatically challenging, and it's what I think is so fascinating about AI in particular. In when we look at it from an enterprise IT perspective, it is simultaneously moving at light speed and glacially, right? Because we have this development that's happening, and yet when we try to figure out how to actually put this into practice, operationalize it, put governance around it, some of the things we've been talking about the last several weeks, it's really hard. And therefore organizations are moving rightfully slowly, trepidatiously. They're cautious. They're not just diving in, other than maybe Moderna, other than a few that are going out there. They're not just diving into it. And so, we had a couple of articles this week that I thought was interesting, and I think a growing, maybe not chorus, but a growing willingness to, maybe call some of this out. And so one of the first was an article you identified from VentureBeat that said, "Can we please stop talking about replacing employees with AI?" Bit of a rant by a CEO of I didn't even look. I think they're a staffing company or some kind of an HR
Yes.
company. But I was curious, why what drew this article out to you?
I think simply that there's been a real focus on optimizing labor, which often simply means laying people off, and thinking about how that may work from an operational perspective for certain types of grunt labor, such as data entry, but probably I don't think is going to work very well when you think about the capacity of an organization to create better products and services at the end of the day. Uh, for those of us who are in the business of doing better, and I'm not meaning just in the like holistic sense of being better for your world, but simply very tactically like being better at delivering a chip or delivering a product or having a better service. Honestly, I think that requires some level of human input at this point, and it's hard to see where the types of AI we have now really help provide better services. They may provide more human interactions to some extent, but in terms of actually providing more trusted, more honest, better and services, it's kind of hard to see where AI is tying into that right now. So simply trying to replace humans when we don't have that human level of quality from end to end, as Salonis was trying to do, is kind of a challenge right now.
What I think is interesting is, to a certain extent, IT has been our own worst enemy in this regard. I wrote about this in my first book, about the roots, the foundation of the function of IT and where it came from. And we started with this idea that it was about improving productivity, increasing efficiency, reducing the cost of labor. That was always the march. And what we inevitably found was that that rarely led to layoffs. It led to an increase in our production ability in some way. And we then took those savings, so to speak, and plowed them into the expansion and the growth of whatever it is we were doing. And I think that the challenge has been that past a certain point, and I think we reached this point a decade or more ago, that most of the value came from our ability to activate or really create engagement for those knowledge workers that we are delivering this technology to. And I'll use myself as an example. I think I mentioned on this show before, right, that I've been transitioning a lot of my work and spending a lot more time doing sort of the heavy lifting go-to-market strategy and working on marketing campaigns and doing that sort of work. And I'm using generative AI, various models, constantly. And it's insanely useful for me, mostly because it helps me close my gaps. I'm this big picture
Yes. Mhm.
strategic thinker, and I have a real hard time. I write books for a reason, right? I have a really hard time condensing all these things I think into these little pithy responses or, marketing tagline or whatever. And so I'm using Gen AI to help me close that gap. But I realized that how? Well, I'm feeding it these big long pieces that I've been working on that give it kind of the foundation of my thought of whatever it is I'm doing. And then I give it this prompt that is incredibly detailed about the exact challenges I'm having and the concerns that this,
Mhm.
persona maybe is having or whatever it is. And then it's giving me this great response. Well, it's giving me that great response because I'm giving it all this core information that is out of my brain, out of my head, right?
Right.
So could it replace me? Well, of course not. It's augmenting my ability to do my job well. And I think we need to have the honest conversation. If you are a person who is doing just a super simplistic job, yeah, you might be at risk. If you are right now producing, this junk content that is used to go spam people, yeah, I can use an AI bot to do that. That's because it wasn't valuable to begin with, right?
Right.
But for the vast majority of people, that's not the issue. And so I think what I found most striking about this particular rant article was that it was sort of like a slap against the head of the CEOs who continue to think that the only reason you ever invest in technology is that it's going to reduce your headcount.